My name is Mackenzie, and last month, standing in my heavy Yale Law graduation robes, I received a text message that should have broken me. It was from my father. "We are too tired from your sister's trip to attend your ceremony today."
Sorry.
He didn't know I was the valedictorian. He didn't know I was about to deliver the keynote address to thousands. I didn't shed a tear. I didn't waste energy demanding an explanation I knew they couldn't give. I simply typed 2 words: rest well. Then, I put my phone away and walked onto the stage to burn everything down. Have you ever been told you weren't worth the effort, only for them to realize too late what they missed? Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from right now. I'd love to know who's standing with me in this. To understand why I didn't break down in that moment, you have to understand the economics of my family. I wasn't just a daughter. I was a bad investment. For 25 years, I had been the glass child, transparent, easily looked through, existing only as a window for my parents to watch my sister, Alyssa, shine. While I was studying for the LSATs until 3 in the morning, fueling myself on vending machine coffee and anxiety, Alyssa was unboxing PR packages in the living room. While I was securing a $250,000 scholarship to cover every cent of my tuition at Yale so my parents wouldn't have to pay a dime, they were financing Alyssa's lifestyle to the tune of $28,000. That was the cost of her current content creation trip to Bali. They called it an investment in her brand. I called it what it was, a vanity tax. See, in a family like mine, love isn't unconditional. It is transactional. This is the golden child and scapegoat dynamic in its purest, most toxic form. Alyssa wasn't just the favorite because she was charming. She was the favorite because she was a mirror. She reflected my parents' desperate need to be seen as wealthy, trendy, and relevant. She allowed them to live vicariously through her curated posts and filtered photos. I, on the other hand, was a mirror that showed them their flaws. My quiet independence, my academic obsession, my refusal to perform for their applause, it didn't feed their ego. It starved it. I was the sponge designed to absorb their anxiety so Alyssa could remain pristine. I knew where I stood. I accepted the ledger. But the text message about being too tired felt like a fraudulent charge I couldn't dispute. Until my Aunt Eleanor called. Aunt Eleanor is the only person in my bloodline who operates on facts rather than feelings. She called me 10 minutes after I received my father's text. She didn't offer sympathy. She offered evidence. "Mackenzie," she said, her voice clipped and low, like she was sharing state secrets. "They didn't just decide not to come today. They were never going to come." I asked her what she meant. I assumed it was just their usual negligence. But Eleanor told me to stop being naive. She had been at the house 2 weeks ago to drop off a casserole. She saw the mail on the counter. Specifically, a thick, cream-colored envelope with a Yale University seal stamped in gold. It was the notification letter. The one telling parents that their child had achieved the highest academic honor the university could bestow. The one inviting them to the special valedictorian brunch. I asked her if they opened it. Eleanor hesitated, then delivered the blow that turned my sadness into cold, hard rage. She said my mother never saw it. Alyssa got to the mail first. Eleanor watched my sister slide the envelope under a stack of catalogs and then, later, saw it in the recycling bin, unopened and torn in half. Alyssa knew. She knew that if my parents found out I was the valedictorian, their desire for bragging rights might actually outweigh their laziness. They might cancel her extension in Bali to come take photos with me. So, she intercepted the information. She curated reality just like she curated her Instagram feed. And my parents? They were too self-absorbed to wonder why they hadn't heard anything. It wasn't just neglect. It was sabotage. I hung up the phone and looked at my reflection in the dorm room mirror. The girl staring back at me wasn't a victim anymore. She was a prosecutor who had just been handed the smoking gun. They didn't stay away because they were tired. They stayed away because my sister manipulated them and they were too indifferent to notice. That was the moment the last trace of hope evaporated. I didn't feel grief. I felt clarity. The ledger was balanced. They had made their choice, and now I was going to make mine. I wasn't just going to graduate. I was going to make sure that their absence was the loudest thing in the auditorium. I didn't waste time mourning the family I didn't have. I started preparing the stage for the family I was about to expose. Most people react to betrayal with noise, screaming matches, tearful voicemails, long paragraphs sent via text that never get read. I don't do noise. I do precision. I walked into the university registrar's office 30 minutes after hanging up with Aunt Eleanor. The room was buzzing with frantic seniors trying to squeeze extra tickets for their grandparents and cousins. The air smelled of panic and stale coffee. When it was my turn, the clerk, a woman who looked like she had been saying no for 6 hours straight, didn't even look up. Name? She asked. Mackenzie, I said. Valedictorian. Her head snapped up. Oh. Congratulations. How many tickets do you need? We have a limit of 4 per family, but given your status, the dean has authorized 2 extra if you. 1, I interrupted. She blinked, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Just 1? Are you sure? I am sure. 1 ticket. Front row. Center. She printed it out, the sound of the machine loud in the quiet office. She handed it to me with a look of pity, assuming I was some lonely academic with no one to share the glory. She was wrong. I wasn't lonely. I was strategic. That ticket wasn't for a person. It was for a prop. I left the office and walked down Chapel Street to a small antique shop I passed every day, but never entered. I knew exactly what I was looking for. I found it in a dusty bin near the back, a heavy, silver-handled hand mirror. The glass was old, slightly fogged around the edges, but still sharp enough to catch the light. It felt cold and substantial in my hand. It cost $45, a small price to pay for the statement I was about to make. You see, an empty chair is sad. It implies loss. It implies that someone is missing. But a chair with a mirror on it? That is an accusation. It says, if you ever decide to look for me, you will only see yourself and the space you refuse to fill. It forces the viewer to confront the void. The silver mirror went into my bag. The single ticket followed. I walked out of my dorm room and didn't look back. The morning of graduation arrived with the kind of aggressive sunshine that feels mocking when you are numb inside. I stood in front of my full-length mirror, fastening the heavy velvet of my doctoral robes. I adjusted the gold cord of the valedictorian around my neck. I looked like a success story. I felt like a ghost.
My phone buzzed on the desk.
I shouldn't have looked. I knew better. But the masochistic part of my brain, the part that still needed to measure the depth of the cut, picked it up. It was a notification from Instagram. Alyssa had posted to her story. I tapped the screen. The video load time felt like an eternity. Then it popped onto the screen, bright and loud. It wasn't a video of someone recovering from travel fatigue. It wasn't a video of people sleeping off jet lag. It was a boomerang of my parents and Alyssa on a beach in Bali. They were holding tropical cocktails, clinking glasses against a sunset that burned orange and violet. My mother was laughing, her head thrown back in performative joy. My father was wearing a linen shirt unbuttoned too low, grinning at the camera. The caption, written in Alyssa's loopy, trendy font, read, #blessed. My parents treating me like the queen I am. So glad to be away from the boring drama back home. Love you guys. Boring drama. That was me. That was my law degree. That was the culmination of 3 years of sleepless nights and 25 years of survival. To them, my achievement was just background noise they had successfully muted. The text message about being too tired wasn't just a lie. It was an insult to my intelligence. They weren't resting. They were partying. They were spending the money that could have flown them to Connecticut on another round of drinks for the golden child. I felt something snap in my chest. It wasn't a break. It was a lock clicking into place. The last hesitation I had, the tiny voice whispering that maybe I was being too harsh, died instantly. Wolsey Hall is magnificent. It is a cathedral of academia, with soaring arches and pipe organs that make you feel small and significant all at once. The room was already filling up with families, fathers adjusting ties, mothers waving programs, siblings fighting over seats. The hum of collective pride was deafening. I walked down the center aisle, my black robes billowing behind me. I found the seat, front row, directly in the line of sight of the podium. I placed the ticket on the velvet cushion. Then, I placed the mirror on top of it, angling it slightly upward so it caught the reflection of the empty ceiling. It looked out of place. It looked disturbing. Good. People were staring. A woman in the row behind leaned forward and tapped my shoulder. "Excuse me, dear," she whispered. "Is someone sitting there?" I looked at her, then at the mirror, then back at her. "No," I said, my voice calm and carrying over the noise. "That seat is taken by the truth." I turned and walked up the steps to the stage. The live stream cameras were already rolling. The red light on the main camera blinked on, a silent eye broadcasting to the world. I took my place behind the podium. I smoothed my notes. I looked at the empty chair with the silver mirror one last time. It was time to speak. I cleared my throat, and the sound echoed through the cavernous hall like a gavel strike. 3,000 faces looked up at me. Parents with camcorders, grandparents wiping tears, students adjusting their caps. And front and center, the unblinking red eye of the livestream camera. We are often told that success is a collective effort. I began, my voice steady, amplified, filling every corner of the room. That we stand on the shoulders of giants. That behind every graduate, there is a family who sacrificed to get them here. I paused. The silence in the room deepened. But that is not everyone's story. Some of us didn't stand on shoulders. We stood on our own 2 feet because if we leaned on anyone, we would have fallen. I looked down at the front row, at the velvet cushion, at the silver mirror glinting under the stage lights. "I reserved a seat today for my family," I said, gesturing to it. The camera operators, sensing the shift, zoomed in. The image of the mirror reflecting the high, empty ceiling was now being beamed to screens across the world. They couldn't be here. I received a text this morning telling me they were too tired from a vacation to attend. They didn't know I was the valedictorian.
They didn't ask.
A murmur rippled through the crowd, a collective intake of breath. "I placed a mirror on that chair for a reason," I continued, locking eyes with the camera lens. "Because if they ever decide to look for the daughter they ignored, I want them to see exactly who is responsible for her absence. They won't see me. They will only see themselves." I could feel the energy in the room shift from polite attention to electric shock. This wasn't a speech. It was an indictment. For years, I thought my success would be the currency I could use to buy their love, I said, leaning into the microphone. I thought if I worked harder, if I won more awards, if I became perfect, they would finally see me. But I realized something during my time here at Yale. Success isn't a negotiation tactic. It is a survival strategy. To every student here who feels invisible, I said, my voice dropping an octave, intimate and hard. To the glass children who raise themselves while their parents watch someone else, your success is not a revenge plot. Revenge implies you are doing it for them, to hurt them. That still gives them power.
No.
Your success is an escape hatch. It is the evidence of your survival despite them. I gripped the sides of the podium. I didn't become valedictorian to make my parents proud. I did it to make myself free. I did it so that when I walk off the stage, I walk into a life that I own completely. A life where I set the table. A life where the seats are filled by people who showed up. I looked at the mirror one last time. So, to my parents, who are resting well today, thank you. Your absence taught me how to fill my own space. And to everyone else, stop waiting for applause from people who aren't even watching. Clap for yourself. I stepped back. For a second, there was absolute silence. The kind of vacuum that happens after an explosion. Then it broke. It started in the back with the students. A roar. It wasn't polite applause. It was a thunderous, stomping, screaming ovation.
People were standing.
I saw a woman in the second row crying, clutching her chest. I walked off the stage, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I didn't look back at the empty chair. I didn't need to. As I exited the wings, my phone, which I had tucked into the pocket of my dress under my robes, began to vibrate. It wasn't a notification. It was a continuous, steady buzz. A flood. I pulled it out. Twitter notifications were scrolling so fast I couldn't read them. Hashtag the mirror seat was already trending. A clip of my speech had been screen recorded and posted by a classmate. It had 10,000 views in 3 minutes. The world had woken up. And somewhere in a luxury villa in Bali, the sun was rising on a day that was about to go very, very wrong for Thomas and Susan. It was exactly noon when the first call came through. In Bali, it was just past midnight. The timestamp on the "too tired" text was 12 hours old, but the consequences were just waking up. I was sitting in a booth at a quiet Italian restaurant near campus with Aunt Eleanor and Mia. We had ordered champagne. My phone, which I had placed face up on the table, lit up.
Dad.
Then, seconds later, Mom. Then, Alyssa. It wasn't a ring, it was a seizure. The device vibrated against the wood, a frantic, mechanical plea for attention. "Are you going to answer that?" Mia asked, eyeing the screen with a mixture of fear and glee. I took a sip of champagne. The bubbles felt sharp and clean against my tongue. Eventually, I said, "Let them marinate." I waited until the 5th call. By then, the voicemail icon was blinking furiously. I picked up the phone, swiped green, and put it on speaker. I didn't say hello. I didn't need to. "Mackenzie, what the hell have you done?" My father's voice was a distorted screech, loud enough that the couple at the next table glanced over. Behind him, I could hear sobbing, hysterical, gasping sounds that could only be Alyssa. "You destroyed us," he shouted. "Do you have any idea what is happening right now? My LinkedIn is gone. People are spamming my business page with 1-star reviews calling me a deadbeat. A reporter from the New Haven Register just called my personal cell phone asking for a comment on the mirror seat. How did they even get this number?" I listened. I didn't feel my pulse race. I didn't feel the old urge to apologize or smooth things over. I felt like a scientist observing a volatile chemical reaction from behind safety glass. "Mackenzie, say something," my mother screamed, her voice shrill. "Alyssa is losing sponsors. A skincare brand just dropped her. They said she's brand unsafe. She's having a panic attack. You have to fix this. You have to post something right now saying it was a misunderstanding. Tell them we were sick. Tell them anything." This was the moment I had trained for. In therapy, they call it gray rocking. You become as uninteresting and unresponsive as a rock. You don't feed the narcissist's drama. You starve it. "I can't do that," I said. My voice was flat, devoid of anger or sympathy. It was a statement of fact, like reading a weather report. "What do you mean you can't?" my father bellowed. "You caused this. You humiliated your own family on a global stage. After everything we've done for you." "You said you were too tired," I interrupted, cutting through his tirade with surgical precision. "I simply respected your need for rest. The internet drew its own conclusions." We were in Bali. Alyssa shrieked from the background. "I needed this content. Do you know how much this trip cost? Do you know how hard I've worked to build this following? You're jealous. You've always been jealous, you miserable little." "I understand you're upset," I said, using the same tone I used when negotiating lease agreements. "It sounds like a very stressful situation for you." The silence on the other end was stunned. They were waiting for me to fight back. They wanted me to scream, to cry, to give them something they could use to paint me as the villain. By giving them nothing, I was holding up a mirror again. "Stressful?" my mother sputtered. "We are being crucified. You ungrateful child. You fix this. You delete that video, and you issue an apology, or so help me God, Mackenzie." "I have to go," I said, checking my watch. "My dinner is here. I'm celebrating." "Celebrating? Celebrating what?" "Ruining your family. Graduating," I said. "Goodbye." I tapped the red button. The screaming cut off instantly, replaced by the polite clinking of silverware in the restaurant. I looked at Aunt Eleanor. She raised her glass. "To the art of silence," she said. "To the art of silence," I repeated. I blocked their numbers. Not permanently, not yet. I needed them to be able to see my silence. I needed them to send texts that would go unread, to make calls that would go straight to voicemail. I wanted them to feel the vast, cold distance I had placed between us. Just when I thought the ledger was balanced, the final entry arrived. It came 2 days later, not from the internet, but from a manila envelope Aunt Eleanor placed on my desk. "I wasn't going to show you this," she said, her face grim. I thought the emotional neglect was enough. But after that phone call, after hearing them cry about money and reputation, you need to see the numbers. I opened the envelope. Inside were photocopies of my father's bank statements. Eleanor had found them on his desk when she went over to feed the cat, the only living thing in that house she still cared about. I scanned the lines. Mortgage payments, car leases, credit card bills for designer boutiques. And then I saw it. The date was May 20th. 1 day before my graduation. 1 day before the text claiming they couldn't afford the flight to New Haven because business was tight. Wire transfer. Outgoing. $10,000. Recipient. Alyssa Miller. Memo. Emergency shopping. Love, Dad. I stared at the line items until the numbers blurred. $10,000. Wired 24 hours before he told me he couldn't afford a $300 plane ticket. Emergency shopping, I whispered. She called him crying, Eleanor said, her voice shaking with suppressed fury. She saw a vintage Chanel bag in a boutique in Seminyak. She told him she needed it for a photo shoot or she'd look like a failure. He wired the money within the hour. The coldness in my chest turned into something heavier, something final. This wasn't just favoritism. This was financial abuse. For 4 years, I had refused to ask them for a dime. I worked as a research assistant. I tutored undergraduates. I ate ramen and skipped social events to save money, believing their lies that they were struggling to support 2 daughters. They weren't struggling. They were funneling the family wealth into a black hole of vanity. They had drained their savings not on essentials, but on maintaining the golden child's delusion of stardom. And when the bill came due for my one moment of recognition, a flight, a hotel, a dinner, they claimed bankruptcy. They hadn't just neglected me. They had robbed me. They had stolen the resources that should have been shared and burned them on handbags and likes. I took a picture of the bank statement. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. This wasn't for the public. This was for me. It was the final piece of evidence I needed to execute the last phase of my plan. They aren't just bad parents, Aunt Eleanor, I said, placing the paper back on the desk. They are thieves. What are you going to do? She asked. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. I'm going to let them keep the money. And I'm going to keep my life. 2 weeks later, they returned. They didn't come back to a ticker tape parade. They came back to a city that looked at them sideways. They came back to a mailbox full of overdue bills and a social circle that had quietly muted them. They showed up at my dorm on a rainy Tuesday. They didn't know I had already moved out. I had used my signing bonus from the law firm, a number that would have made my father choke, to lease a penthouse apartment downtown. But I hadn't updated my address in the family group chat. I was actually on campus to return my key card when I saw them. They were standing outside the dorm entrance, huddled under a shared umbrella. They looked smaller. My father's shoulders were slumped. My mother wasn't wearing makeup. Alyssa was scrolling frantically on her phone, probably deleting comments. I watched them from the archway of the law library. It was a pathetic tableau. The power flip was complete. The people who had held all the cards, money, approval, presents, were now standing in the rain, begging for entry into a life they had never bothered to visit. My phone buzzed. A text from the group chat. Mom, Mackenzie, we're outside. Please let us in. We brought you a souvenir from Bali. We just want to take a photo together. To show everyone we're healing. A photo. That's all this was. PR damage control. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted a prop to rehabilitate their image. I didn't walk over to them. I didn't yell. I opened the group chat one last time. Mackenzie, I'm not there. And I'm not coming down. Alyssa, where are you? Stop being a brat. We flew halfway around the world to fix this. Mackenzie, you flew back because you ran out of money. I know about the wire transfer, Dad. I saw the statement. $10,000 for a bag while you couldn't afford a flight for your daughter. Three dots appeared. Disappeared.
Appeared again. Panic.
Mackenzie, the mirror is yours now. You can keep looking at yourselves. I'm done looking back. I hit block contact. First on Dad, then Mom, then Alyssa. Then I left the group chat. I watched them for one more minute. My father threw the umbrella down in frustration. My mother started crying into her hands. Alyssa kicked the brick wall of the dorm. I turned around and walked away. That night, I hosted a dinner at my new apartment. The table was made of reclaimed oak, solid and heavy. Around it sat Aunt Eleanor, Mia, and 3 of my new colleagues from the firm. We drank wine. We laughed about case law. We argued about politics. To my right, there was an empty chair. But this time, it didn't have a mirror on it. It didn't have a reserved sign. It was just a chair, waiting for someone worthy to fill it. And until then, I was perfectly happy to let it be empty, because I had built the table. And that was enough. We all have an empty chair we need to stop waiting for. If you found the courage to build your own table, share the story. You never know who needs to hear it today.